What is a futurist? I mean, I think, there's two things that people always want to know when you stand up and say, you're a futurist. A, what the hell is a futurist? And B, is it, even vaguely possible to predict the future? What I actually do is I think about the future. Now, everyone does that. It's not difficult, it's not rocket science, you don't need a degree, you don't need anything in particular. You need time, critically. I think you need a certain level of sort of curiosity. The interesting thing is that I kind of am used by companies quite a lot to think about now, though, and this whole sort of futurist thing is a bit of an excuse to allow people to think deeply about what they're doing right now. We didn't have this level of connectivity last time. We didn't have the internet the last time there was a recession. We didn't have the same attitude to risk that we've got now. But again, we seem to have shifted from a sort of period of irrational exuberance to a period of irrational pessimism, and there's people out there thinking this is never going to end, and it's a cycle, it will end. I actually think it's going to end sooner rather than later. I think it's going to end in 18 months and not be anywhere near. I mean, the financial system is not going to collapse anymore. It could have done, it's not anymore, I promise you. And I think we're just going to sort of come out of it. Where we come out, which I'll come back to at the end, is a really interesting question, and it affects everything at the moment. That's the world in 2050, according to Goldman Sachs. I don't think so, actually. China, US, UK. I actually think those are the other way around. I think the US is there, China's there. In fact, actually, there's a really strong argument saying China's not even on the map in 2050. China will have disintegrated by 2050. But for short-term purposes, which is kind of the next 5 to 10 years, yes, massive shift. And what's kind of happening is money in particular, but from money, power, military might, cultural factors are shifting from the US through Europe into the Middle East, and particularly Asia, China and India. Now, what Goldman Sachs are doing is this, which is they're putting a line on it, just going whack. I'm sure they're not, actually. I'm sure they're way smarter than that. But this is quite an interesting chart I found. This is global GDP from the year 0 to 2005. Now, I don't know where on earth you get data on about 1700, but hey. I mean, it's the International Monetary Fund, so it's their chart. So they're not stupid. They must have got this from somewhere. I think this puts it into a beautiful perspective. It also teaches us that the most important thing when looking at the future is to look at the past. That's the first thing you do. China, been huge a couple of times before. Next year, 90% of scientists and engineers, 90% of scientists and engineers with a PhD will live in Asia. I mean, and these are smart people, they drive innovation, they invent stuff, intellectual property, that's a worry for the rest. That is the reason why maybe the US does do that. I think something like 40% of Silicon Valley startups are started by Indians and Chinese immigrants in the US. If they all go back home, yes, that could happen. So that's sort of one to watch. Assuming 8% growth in China, which is now deeply questionable, by 2020 there'll be 100 million Chinese households with living standards of an average European level. There are more Chinese people speaking English in China than there are here, Canada, Australia, and a couple of other small countries combined. I mean, just the numbers are just staggering. What's going to happen? I guess you're going to get 3 power blocks in the fairly foreseeable future, and I'm talking, I don't know, 2015, 2020, which is not that far away. You'll get the US, you'll get China, and you'll get Europe. Now, whether Europe is a power block, I don't know. It's so sort of fragmented already that whether it speaks with one voice or not, I don't know. But theoretically, it's the biggest market, which everyone forgets about. It's actually bigger than China. This is the sort of mother of all trends. Demographics is the most certain of all of these trends. Whether the internet could crash tomorrow, we could all decide we're not going to use it, whatever. The environment, we could all have found it was a terrible mistake, and actually we can just carry on polluting. This one, short of a real pandemic or World War III, we know how many 70-year-olds there will be in Britain in 20 years' time, with phenomenal accuracy, pretty much. I mean, again, immigration might change it a bit, but it's pretty accurate. People obviously living longer, they're healthier for longer, so they've got different mindsets. Bear in mind, something like, I think it's 80% of global wealth is held by people over the age of 55, 60. This is a supermarket for people aged 65 plus. What's that look like? Common sense. The aisles, the shelves down to here, so you can actually pick things up. You can connect a wheelchair to trolleys. There's lots of places to sit down. Anti-skid floors. There are I love this one, there are magnifying devices on gondola ends, so you can actually read the back of the copy and so on. And again, defibrillators in case you have a heart attack kind of thing. So, and also, presumably, they'd be selling a lot of stuff for people that have no teeth, or they have arthritis, or, in Japan, baby food companies have started selling to older people because they've got the same mouth, basically, no teeth. So you'll see sort of more things like this. Phones, a bit like the Kindle, bigger buttons, bigger text, don't need all the functionality, common sense, but most companies aren't run by people at 70. You know, I challenge you to find a marketing person that's more than 50. In fact, most are in, you know, most marketing departments are run by people in their 20s and 30s, and there's a few people in their 40s. So yes, they're not really in the mindset of somebody that's 70 living on their own with arthritis. This is slowly changing. Emotional intelligence, machines beginning to understand the users. Toyota has got a concept car that can work out the mental state of the driver. Why would they do that? Because of safety. How do they do that? How hard are you holding the steering wheel? Are you veering in and out? Are you shouting? What would you do about it? Well, you'd cap the speed, you'd cap the acceleration, you might put on some sort of nice smells and mood-enhancing lights, I don't know. Computers, the same. It's very easy for Microsoft to know what mood you're in, because there's cameras, microphones, how hard are you hitting the keys, are you shouting, are you, and they could decide that now is a really bad time to send the email from the mother-in-law, for example, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is a problem because the future, everyone's busier, it's noisy, everyone's a bit anxious, so trying to time the delivery of things to people is absolutely critical. And the general shift from things like when you buy a phone, you've got to enter all your details and adapt it, personalise it for yourself. They'll do that themselves. They will personalise themselves and adapt to us in the future. Location-enhanced services. I mean, because everything has a geo-tag on it and knows where it is, you can play all sorts of games. So I'm walking down Charing Cross and I'm sort of, I'm hungry, and I say to somebody I'm hungry, or I text them. The phone company knows I'm hungry, it knows where I am, and it could ping McDonald's a message saying, do you want to bid for the fact you can send this guy a text saying, actually, we're around the corner and here's a map, we'll guide you in, kind of thing. So stuff like that's going to get kind of interesting. This is interesting. This is adoption of technology. Late 1800s, early 1900s, it took 50 years for half the US population to get a phone. It took 7 years for half the US population to get a mobile phone. These are staggering adoption rates, and the same more or less would be true with the internet. The environment, can't really not talk about the environment. The environment's an interesting one. I mean, first of all, it's sort of slightly disappeared a bit because of the economy, and I think, it would, actually. This is a sort of a longer term thing, it's more uncertain. The economy is a more immediate threat. My job, my house, my family, environment over there somewhere for a bit. Very, very big difference between attitudes and behaviour. The only time I've ever seen behaviour significantly change is when oil hit 140. Then people changed their behaviour. They were selling cars. Then it dropped again, they went straight back their other ways. Also bear in mind, in the 1700s, we had peak wood in Britain. Wood was incredibly expensive because it was a wood-based economy. It was a building material, it was fuel. It was becoming expensive because of population growth and things being cleared for cities, things being cleared for agriculture. And it was the cost of wood that actually was the catalyst for the development of the deep coal mining industry. And previously they knew it was there, they didn't know how to get it out. And that was the catalyst. And I think you'll see the same thing with oil. It'll be the catalyst, and it already is, for other technologies. This is an extinction timeline. So the future is normally thought of in terms of new things that are going to be invented and will appear, but equally the future is about old stuff that vanishes. The other thing to overlay on all of this is that a lot of the basics don't change at all. Like media, changed out of recognition, but it's still about storytelling, information, trust, entertainment. Particularly the storytelling is still fun, and it's about conversation. That isn't. We're just chosen different ways of doing it. If you looked at retail is still, a lot of the basics are unchanged. Men and women shop differently. I don't think that's going to change in the future. I mean, yes, men are getting more feminine, yes, women are getting more masculine, but it's a bit like sex. Men kind of want to go in, get what they want and get out. Women want to sort of hang around a bit, have a chat. There's some differences there. And I don't think that's going to change in the future. I should probably shut up now. Okay, thank you very much.